Hey everyone, welcome to the Ex-Wives Lounge podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Lauren. And guess what? Today is the very first episode with the Ex-Wives Lounge first guest. I'm so excited and honored for Jamil Frazier to be joining with us today. Jamil, welcome.
Lauren,
Thank you for being here
thanks
with
for
us.
having me.
I can't thank you enough. I know time is precious. I know what a busy man you are, but I appreciate you making time for the lounge.
No, this is amazing. And to be the first guest, man,
First.
so much pressure.
No
Let's
pressure.
go.
No
pressure at all.
No.
And for me to be a guy and to be the first guest on
This is
Ex-Wives
not
Lounge.
a, male bashing platform.
Oh, well, that's helpful.
We are
Thank
very
you.
pro man.
So I'll be good then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, you guys take it easy on me out there.
So first, because I think this is so important, is can you tell the listeners and the viewers what your background is? What motivated you to want to help people become financially free, comfortable financially? What's your motivating factor?
I think just to help people get to a place that I never thought that I could get to. I grew up in Southern California, where we are now, to a single mama, to a father that was in and out of prison. My mom had a very rough childhood.
Okay.
Both of her parents died within a year and a half of each other. She was sort of thrust into a role of a matriarch overlooking the family. Her youngest brother died essentially in her arms at the age of 14 due to gang violence. And my father, let's just say Papa was a rolling stone. And so with all of that stress and all of that loss, Mama didn't really know what to do. So she turned to drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism. And so when I was born into a single family home.
Right.
Mom was, drug addict, alcoholic. Dad was in prison. We lived on Section 8 and welfare for the first 15, 20 years of my life.
Right.
And I just didn't know the money game.
Right.
I saw that it was possible. I saw that people did very well. I didn't think that that was possible for us, but I was always curious, and I always wanted to know, how do people live in certain neighborhoods? How do people build wealth? How do people build businesses?
Right.
And so that was always sort of a quest of mine to figure that out. And then over the last 10 years, I've just been granted so many beautiful opportunities. So one, start my own business, start my own organization, build that up to, to the point of where we were doing millions in revenue, having a chance to not only coach and mentor thousands of entrepreneurs, but become an author, become an investor, an accredited investor, and now investing in the early stage companies.
Right.
And then starting the company that I run now, which is Think Life is Different, where we help people scale their businesses and scale their wealth. So I think because I started with so much turmoil and such a high stress environment,
Right.
and just never being a part of that money story has now set me on fire.
Right.
To help other
It's your
people.
motivator.
Yeah, absolutely. And to do it early. And I think there's a lot of myths that are around building wealth and doing well financially. And I think it can be a really scary topic.
Right.
Because it's just not something that most people talk about.
And would you agree too that someone in the same situation as you that didn't have a role model to teach him or teach her, hey, this is what you do. This is how you save. You live on a budget. These are choices that you make. It's one of those things where I think your curiosity is kind of the fire that lit that interest in you wanting to figure out things, right? And now that as you're a dad, it's almost like you're paying that forward now too.
Yeah.
Because now you get to show your children, this is how you do things, a step-by-step process. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on as the first guest is I think because when people think about divorce, right, there's two main factors that I have seen, even in my own personal, experience, that play into the experience of divorce. And that is emotional stress and trauma, financial stress and trauma.
Yeah.
And, when I was creating this podcast, I thought, I want to make women feel so supported in, let's say their divorce has just been finalized and they're left with this amount of money. What do they do with that?
Yeah.
Right? Do you want your money to work for you? Are there certain ways that you can invest, right? And then getting back up on your feet financially. What does that look like? And then I think also a pretty big thing that I'm, hoping you can really dive into with me today is, what would we say to that stay-at-home mom that's afraid to file for divorce, that's afraid to leave because she's been leaning on her husband and this man in her life for so many years, and he's just been handling all the financials.
Sure.
So what are the small steps that a woman like that can make to make it a little bit easier to decide to leave and not just stay because it's financially comfortable?
Well, I think what I have seen, right, just having the opportunity to mentor thousands of entrepreneurs, I would say 90% of them have been women, Lauren.
Okay.
And I see that we use oftentimes money as a power mechanism in a relationship. And so money has this really amazing, it's at the end of the day, it's just a tool, but it's a tool that can be used to control. And so for a woman who might be the stay-at-home mama, it might be enjoying an amazing relationship, but might be in a place to where she feels like she's unseen, or she's unheard, or she just is kind of feeling like she's losing her place. Unvalued.
Right.
I would say that one of the first things to do is to become part of that money story.
Okay.
So I'm not saying you necessarily have to dominate it. I think that there's roles that make a relationship really good.
Right.
But if she's in a place to where she's saying, I'm hands off,
right,
because that is the man's role, I would ask her to reconsider that
100%.
And to become more hands-on and understand that this is part of both of our roles.
Right.
Not saying that she needs to necessarily be in control of that.
Right.
But we got to know what is happening and what's going on. Like one of the things that I did for my wife, I have been so blessed in my life to be raised by women. I think when you see me sitting on this chair right now, we see Jamil, but literally, like, my mom is sitting here, a mentor of mine in college is sitting here. Like, there's just been women that's picked me up my whole life.
Right.
And it was about 6 years ago, I went to go visit one of my mentors in college, really the first person that saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I think once in college, once she started to see that in me, I started to kind of like, I wanted to be like her so much. I wanted to have, the accoutrements that they had. I wanted to have the wealth that they had. So something tragic happened just a few years ago, and her husband was a healthy guy, was out for a run one day, collapsed and died.
Oh, no.
And when I went to her house to go visit with her and console her, she cried for about 3 hours straight, could barely get a word out. And one of her biggest fears was, I have no idea what we've been doing with the money. They were in 4 or 5 different businesses. She had no idea what now, this is a woman that's a doctor in sociology.
Right.
She makes great money.
Right.
She lives up in the hills where most people will want to live.
Right.
She's super bright and intelligent. By God, she teaches on, social relationships as a sociologist. And yet, one of the reasons why she was crying so profusely was because she was afraid.
Right.
She had no idea what the next steps were. And I remember driving home that afternoon, and I thought, my wife is someone that likes to be hands off with the finances. And I thought, okay, we got to start getting you involved, whether you want to or not.
Right.
And then I created a document called If Something Should Happen to Me document.
Smart.
So this is something that I created for her, but this is something that I would encourage every woman to
ask
create.
their husband to sit down and create this with them.
Right.
Yeah.
And to sit down on a Sunday afternoon or whatever and make sure that you create this document. What accounts do we have?
Right.
What checking accounts do we have? Do we have blended accounts? Do we have separate accounts?
Right.
What investment accounts do we have? What businesses may we be involved in? What does our insurances look like? Who are we insured with?
Right.
Do we have an estate plan? Who are our beneficiaries? These are all questions that I recommend that a woman actually takes the steps to know for a couple different reasons. One, it's going to strengthen the marriage. But two, if the marriage dissolves, whether you want it to or an untimely death, you actually know what to do. So in our document, I literally have listed out every single thing. Then if something should happen, whether it's a death or a divorce,
Right.
call this person. This is the first person you
Really
call.
smart.
Ask him this. Go to this website.
Right.
Step number 2, call this person. Ask them this. Transfer this here. Step number 3, sell this. Roll this into here. Don't be worried about it. Just do it.
Just do it.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
so whether it's she's in this relationship and it's going to work,
Right.
or she's divorced, now we have something as a blueprint that
Right.
we can now take the steps to go off of.
And you're also depleting her of that fear, right? That
Absolutely.
if, God forbid, it does come to that, and no one wants to think about the if, but there's ifs every day in life.
Right.
That if this occurs, you're depleting that fear of her having to experience that, because she's like, okay, now I can grieve, deal with it,
Right.
but now I know what my next step is.
So much of life is if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail.
Correct.
And so much of the success just comes down to a simple game plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that game plan will now start to take away that anxiety.
Right.
Because I know what's going to happen. I have a succession plan.
Right.
And if she is in the relationship and she's afraid to get out of it, and a lot of that fear comes down to money,
Right.
then immediately what I would start to do is try to get my ducks in a row and try to figure out, well, what is the blueprint? Like, what is happening with our money?
Right.
What are some assets that are there? Can I strategically find out if there's any assets that are hidden?
Right.
Because there are lots of ways that you can hide assets as well.
Uh-huh.
You know, are there different accounts? Do I know about our businesses? And can I start to get that in alignment so that when I do muster up the courage to break away from this relationship,
Right.
I'm not taking on that financial anxiety that I might be if I had no idea what was going on.
No, that makes total sense. And I think that's amazing. It's great. Now, what would be your advice if a woman has just finalized her divorce and she's, walking away with a set amount of alimony, a set amount of child support, and maybe they owned assets? I owned assets when I was with my ex-husband.
Sure.
And obviously that all got divvied up during the divorce. And the thing that was very helpful for me is I worked during the marriage. So in my mind, I kind of almost had an easy exit plan because I had my own money.
Yes.
And so I was already, that fear feeling was already gone for me.
Okay.
And when people go, God, was that so hard to leave? It was hard to leave because I felt immense guilt and pressure of leaving with a child involved. But when it came to leaving because of financials, that was not anything that ever concerned me or stressed me out, because I was already with my own savings account, had my name on other outside stuff, and then at the same time had a normal 9-to-5 income. But in my mind, when I created this podcast, I thought, man, I feel for these women that have dedicated themselves to family,
Sure.
but that are so terrified to leave. And I don't want to see any woman feel like they're stuck, right? So I just think all of that stuff is such great advice. But what would you again say to someone that's walking out of the divorce, that's left with all this money? What's the first thing she should do with this money that's sitting in a bank account that's not working for her?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would do really doesn't have anything to do with money, but I
Okay.
would tell her step one is to realize that you're okay and it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't ideal,
Right.
but it does happen.
Right.
And there's nothing that's wrong with you. You are a great person. He may even be a great person.
Correct.
You guys just may not be great together.
People together. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So step number one is just be okay,
Okay.
right? We're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for a little bit of progress that's going to happen over the next 6 months.
Baby
12 months.
steps.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
You're all good. Step number 2 is build a team. Start building a financial team. Get people around you that you trust and that you know have your best interests in mind. So if that's going to be, a friend who might be in the financial world that you really trust, if that's going to be finding a CPA that can really help you, a tax accountant. But now start building people around you that are experts in these different areas.
Okay.
Like in my book, The Freeman and the Oak Tree, I talk about the 5 laws of leverage. And one of the ways that you can really accelerate success is to leverage people, and to get people that are experts in what they do and put them around you so that it minimizes your chance of making mistakes. So start to build a team. Start asking friends, hey, this is my situation. Who do you know that can help me?
Okay.
Hey, we have these properties.
Right.
Who do you know that can assist me? Hey, I've never really been part of the tax strategy plan, and I don't really know anything about taxes.
Right.
Who do you know that can support me? And now what you'll start to do is build a little coalition of folks that are now going to be your personal board of directors.
Okay.
Okay. So get the team around you. Then from there, then it's essentially just finding out what your new normal is.
Right.
What is your current reality?
Right.
Your income likely is going to be affected, but so are your expenses, meaning the amount of money that's coming in to Lauren probably is going to have changed, even if you have been working in your individual job, or you may have been a housewife who traditionally was not working in the workforce. But I got to get really clear on what is my new normal in terms of the income that's coming in.
Right.
And what is my new normal in terms of the expenses that are going out. And I need to rectify those.
Okay.
And whatever that income is that's coming in, whether that's part of me working, maybe some of his alimony, maybe some of his rental income from rental properties, I now need to start to set a game plan that I'm only going to live off of 70% of that income.
So 70% is that cushy number.
And 70% is where we want to go.
Okay.
Because 10% of whatever is coming in, I want to make sure that I keep stashing that away for a rainy day in case stuff hits the fan or something unforeseen comes up that I wasn't
planning on.
I wasn't planning on.
Right.
I wasn't planning on getting divorced.
Right.
I wasn't planning on COVID.
Right.
I wasn't planning on tariffs. I wasn't planning on a whole bunch of stuff.
Yes.
But I need to make sure that I'm ready for when my plans fall through.
Okay.
The next 10%, I need to make sure to make that money start working for me in an investment. So what are the investment vehicles? Well, we all hear of real estate. We hear of businesses. We hear stocks, bonds, mutual funds, those sorts of things. So we can figure out a strategy to where I can start to have this money start working for me so that eventually it will start to outproduce even what I can earn.
Right.
And then a small portion, another 10%, is going to be giving back to my place of worship, giving back to my community in forms of just giving or tithing. So this is going to allow me to live off of 70% of my income, and my budgets now are set accordingly so that I do not spend outside of that 70%. So that's a great barometer so I know, okay, this is where I need to keep my spending.
Okay.
And here's my income that's coming in, and here are the 3 steps that I start to do with it.
No, that makes total sense. I would say that was very hard for me to stick to. Now I'm sticking to it because I have a mortgage. But prior to that, that was really hard for me to stick to because I felt like, when you're coming out of very high conflict situation, you're in survival mode and you're still in fight or flight mode, right? Because your nervous system is all over the place. And so my biggest thing for me was self-care, right? And so I'm factoring in how much is it for my therapy every week, right? And there's little things like that where you don't want to have to spend the money on it, but those are really vital.
Right.
And I know I don't think I would be as far as I am now if I didn't stretch my budget out a little bit or feel financially tight in that moment so that I could literally get through and survive.
Well, I think that goes back to one of the steps that, I kind of touched on, but didn't go into that deeply. And that's, you got to figure out what it is that you want.
Right.
You're coming out of a divorce. There's some emotional trauma that has set in. There's some financial damage that has taken place. And so part of me saying, hey, just realize that you're okay, to take some time, chill out. A part of that process is figure out, it's like, well, what do I want now?
Right.
Right? Like I'm here, I'm on my own. I may have some children that, might be living with me, might be spending, time with their father.
Right.
But can I get clear on what I would like my life to look like?
Right.
And that could be hard
Yes.
to come up with. What is that North Star?
Right.
What do I want to create? What foundation do I want to set for my children?
Right.
And ultimately, what legacy would I like to leave?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there's purpose. I think I may have heard this from you. Like there's purpose in the
Purpose
pain.
in your pain.
So
That's
what
my
is
motto.
that?
Yeah.
I just stole it from you.
Yeah.
Right? I
Hey,
heard it
borrow
off
it as
camera.
much as you
There it is.
want.
So once I can get clear with that and
Right.
spend some time with that, become intimate with that, then from there I can work backwards. I can see one of the hardest things with finances is 2 D's that I talk about. One is discipline, disciplining yourself to do these things that it's going to require to reach whatever those goals are.
Right.
And the other one is delayed gratification, which I call impulse control. And so impulse control during this time of great emotions is going to be really, really, really hard because your impulses are dictated off of emotions. And
Yes.
a lot of times we try to satisfy our emotions with things. It doesn't matter what the things are. We
No,
were
it's true.
just talking off camera about coffee
Yeah.
and some people's coffee addiction.
That's my vice.
Exactly. A lot of times we turn to those things not because we're actually thirsty or we're in love with coffee. It is because it fulfills something inside.
It's a void.
It is a void.
Uh-huh.
So whether it's coffee or it's alcohol or it's massages or it's getting my hair done or it's nails or going on vacations or I'm going on a shopping spree, these are all emotions that we're trying to fulfill. And so that's why one of the most important things during this time period is something that we call emotional management.
Yeah, it's like that instant gratification.
Instant gratification.
Right? Oh my gosh, these emotions are starting to,
Right.
work their way up and overflow. And what's that one thing that I need right now? And for me, it was always cold brew and cold foam.
It is different for
Guilty
everybody,
as
right?
charged. Cold brew with cold foam.
It could be I'm going out with a glass of wine.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I made sense of it. I wasn't going out and, having wino Wednesdays
Sure.
or going out for drinks because of how healthy my lifestyle is. But it was my vice was that Starbucks drive-through, getting that cold brew with my cold foam.
Sure.
And the minute I sipped it, it was just like, whew, everything's okay in the
Everything's
world.
good now.
Yeah.
It feels like a warm hug.
Yeah, it
even though
does.
it's a cold brew.
It does. It
That's
feels like a
because
warm hug.
that's because we are filling an emotional void. And so now that is okay
Right.
if it's within the 70% or
Of course.
80% or whatever percent.
Right.
Like with our students, we recommend 70%.
Okay.
But I mean, truly, it could be, it could be 80%.
Right.
Right? It could be 97% and 1% you are saving, and another 1% you're investing, another 1% you're giving. It'd be hard to build to, I think, the freedoms that a lot of people are searching with that type of percentage, but you could do that. And that's why we go back to the North Star. What is the end goal?
Okay.
What is the game plan?
Right.
What are we trying to create? And based off of that, we can start to mitigate wants versus needs.
No, that's a really poignant point. What would you say to a woman that has been now on her feet for, a good 2 or 3 years post-divorce? She has herself set up on a decent budget and she's deciding, do I keep renting or do I pull the trigger and buy? What would be your advice to her? Now, obviously, granted, living in different states, dealing with inflation, whatever else is going on in the day-to-day.
Sure.
How would you have someone sit down and look at their financials and make that decision? Is it smarter for me to rent or is it smarter for me to buy a house and grow roots now that I'm divorced and I have children? What would be your advice to someone that's in limbo of deciding pulling the trigger on renting or buying?
So this is case specific,
Mm-hmm.
and it really comes down to what that person's plan is. And I'm
Okay.
going to keep going back to what the plan is.
Yeah.
We don't really want to do anything just because we get a feeling or an emotion or we hear that it's cool to do.
Mm-hmm.
We want to have everything laid out in terms of a plan. So let's just say that this person, we've been planning for this. We've been saving for this. We've been investing in certain vehicles for this. And this person is really on their heart to buy a property. Well, there's certain factors that go into it. Typically, economists are going to say, Lauren, that we don't want to spend more on rent or mortgage than about 28, 29% of our income.
Okay.
Okay. So first, I'm going to have her look at how much money is coming in.
Right.
And can I buy the property that I want to within this income range?
Right.
So if I'm making, let's just easy number, $10,000 a month, can I actually buy a property and be able to take care of the mortgage taxes and insurance and maintenance
Right.
for $3,000 a month?
Right.
If so, then that's something that we may consider. If not, then I would suggest that that person, stay in a point to where they continue to rent something at a lower amount so that they're not house poor.
No, that makes a lot of sense. You don't want someone to feel like they've gotten themselves into a situation where they're now financially stressed and
Right.
strapped. That's the worst thing that a woman would want to be in,
Right.
coming out of what she just came out of.
Sure.
Let's say, there's a woman that wants to educate herself on investing her money.
Mm-hmm.
Does she listen to an investment podcast? Does she research stockbrokers? Does she find a financial planner? What would be the first steps for her?
Yes.
Okay. Yes to all the above.
Yes to
Check,
all
check,
of
and
them.
check.
Yes to all of them. I mean,
Okay.
she's listening to this. She starts to, subscribe to different podcasts and YouTubes. She, subscribes to our podcast, The Difference, where I specifically interview 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs and investors, and they literally give all of their tips
Okay.
of how they've scaled, these great businesses and their own personal net worth.
Right.
She starts reading books. She picks up a book like The Richest Man in Babylon or The Millionaire Next Door.
Okay.
Maybe she picks up my book, The Richest Man in Direct Sales, or she picks
smart
up
of her to do that.
one of my books. She picks up my other book, The Freeman and the Oak Tree, that sort of lays out, how you build and how you scale.
Okay.
But it really does come down to seeking. Once she starts seeking and it becomes important to her,
Right.
like wherever your attention flows, energy is going to go.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Woo.
So if this is something that now becomes like a desire,
Right.
a deep-seated desire, there's so much
Opportunity.
information that's
Yes.
out there right
Yes.
now that you cannot miss it. Take me 10 years ago, I was broke. We're in 2025. In 2015, I had no savings and I did not own anything.
Wow.
Just, right?
Yep.
Nothing at all. And now I look at what we have done and what we have built, and that all came down to having the desire to seek the information. That's why in The Freeman and the Oak Tree, my book that was just released, plug, when I talk about the 5 laws of leverage, the very first law of leverage is knowledge. And if you seek, you will find. But not just knowledge for yourself, knowledge that you're doing right now, Lauren, which is not only learning for yourself, but now sharing it with others so
Right.
that they can duplicate the
Right.
process.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, if she is like, I'm really into this stuff, then we can consume. I remember, what are we in, 2025? Okay,
Yes.
so like my first goal was to become a millionaire. And I remember writing on a 3x5 card, and it said like 2015, and I think I needed to like, it's either save or invest like 16,000 It was like this number that was on this 3x5 card.
Did you think up that number? Or was
No,
it just
I'm
some
sure I did some
jot
sort
it
of
down right away,
mathematics or something.
manifest it, put it out in the world.
Yeah, but it's like I somehow came up with this number. It could have been wrong.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, okay, how can I gather up enough wisdom to make this thing happen? Now, nobody in my family ever come close, ever. I'm not sure that I've known anyone in my family to own a property.
Wow.
Like, I mean, and I'm thinking about on my mom's side and my dad's side.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure maybe I just don't know about it.
Right.
And so I just recall, just consuming information, and I finally became a reader. I never read. I don't even know how to spell.
Wow.
And I have 3 best-selling books.
Wow.
But I just remember I was like, I am going to lock myself in this house, and I'm going to read and listen to everything that I could.
Possibly can.
And I remember I bought like 70 books or something, and I've flown through all of them in I think like 3 months. And it was just like this desire and this thirst that needed to be quenched because I wanted to reach that goal. And then 3 years later, we reached the goal.
That's amazing.
And then from there, it's been that or more every single year. So it really does come down to want to. There's so much. YouTube became my university. Like Apple Podcasts became my best friend.
You are amazing. I'm so appreciative of your time today. Thank you so much. I hope this is not the last time on the lounge.
I hope so not.
I hope you come back.
It's been so good.
It's been
I feel like
great.
we could do this all
day long.
For real.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.